All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. Give me a touch on the top prop bets here for this Wednesday. And I do want to call out that I am recording this video on Tuesday, kind of mid-afternoon to early evening. And so with that, lines can change and whatnot, stuff can change. But we do have a lot of prop bets available. And honestly, we could probably gain a pretty big edge on some of these, but we're going to go through the process of the slate. We're going to start out with the Washington Wizards versus the Charlotte Hornets. So we can see that this is already going to be a game that we like. 240 for an over and under. Not much of a blowout risk at 4 points. These are two teams in which we have been wanting to target thus far this season. Okay, so we're going to be targeting those two teams. Looking at the injury report, we do know that Terry Rozier is out, which is kind of big news. And so with that, what are our expectations for usage? And so with Rozier off the court, we did see that PJ Washington was the player, as expected, that got the biggest usage bump. We also saw Gordon Hayward have a good game, but PJ Washington here had an 8.4% usage rate thus far this season with Rozier off the court, which kind of makes sense. He basically averages 5 more field goal attempts per game with Rozier out the sense. Rozier is someone that shoots the basketball a lot. So is PJ Washington. And if we look at the last game, we did see that slightly as well. Didn't exactly shoot the basketball well, but got about 2 or so more shot attempts up in that game than he typically would, which is a little bit lower than his per 36 production. So he is someone that I'm wondering what props we're going to get for him, because he could be someone that we are looking at. Now, like PJ Washington have too crazy of a game last game, and he is losing out a little bit of rebounds to Mark Williams, who has been playing pretty darn well thus far. Okay, I don't think we're looking at him too much, but we have seen that basically all the starters are going to get a bump in usage. So Mark Williams gets about a 6% bump in usage. And he's not really playing too much, so we don't need to worry about that. Like, he's not going to get 36 minutes is what I mean. But like, basically when he's on the court, he might get another shot attempt up or so. And then from there, LaMelo Ball, he got about a 7.4% bump in usage, averaging about 6 more shot attempts per 36. And this is about 100 minutes going into the sample size. So the 39 minutes that he had in that game, it's not too shocking. And we also saw that he was someone that did not have his minutes limited in that game. That was kind of the report early on the season. And to me, I was always like, what does it mean that he's having his minutes limited when he's playing 33 minutes? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so apparently it means that he's going to play 39 minutes with Terry Rozier off the court. And so he averages about 7.4 points more per 36 with Rozier off the court, 2.8 rebounds, and 1.9 assists more with him off the court. So that's to this average. And as it sits right now, we're not getting too many Charlotte props, but we'll go ahead and touch on the ones that we were getting. So we did see LaMelo Ball is probably someone that we want to be looking at in some capacity. Let's take a peek at the props that we're getting for him. So points, rebounds, and assists. Let's just take a peek at that in general. 42.5. So what I just had said was that when we look at his production per 36 with Rozier off the court, he averages 23.1 points, 7.2 rebounds. So at 30 right there. And then about 11.6 assists. So basically right at that 42 average. So it might be a little bit thin to get to that. And maybe we'd be better off. Probably not chasing rebounds. Maybe the assist at 9.5, where on average he averages 11.6 in this scenario. Given the fact that it's a good game, I don't mind that. We've seen the last game, he played 39 minutes, had 13 assists in that game. So maybe that's the best prop that we can get in that game. And maybe just in general, we want to be looking at over fantasy score he went off in that game. That could be something that we're looking at. Let's see the ones that we are getting for Mark Williams. That's probably a little bit too thin there. I would say so there. He's not someone that's going to get bump in minutes. And then what I do find interesting here is the prop lines that we are getting for PJ Washington, because it is kind of a known factor that he is someone that does get an increase in usage with Terry Rozier off the court. We saw that last year and we've seen that thus far this season, and there's a pretty big sample size going into that. Now he averages 4.1 points more, and maybe that'd be the prop that we'd want to go on the most, but still at this line, looking at his per 36 production, 22.7 points, 5.3 rebounds, so he's already there just in that regard. Then you tack on maybe 2 assists. He averages 1.9 assists per 36 with Terry Rozier off the court. To me, that line's a little bit too low in a game that we want to be attacking. And so, again, I always say this is probably a better bet on one of the sports books, since we are getting it as a bet that's expected to hit the under. Now it's basically a 50-50, but that makes for a better individual bet. We do see his points at 18.5. That is probably a little bit too low as well. So, and maybe that would correlate a little bit with the LaMelo Ball assist. We saw that's a little bit too low. We're seeing that PJ Washington's points is a little bit too low. Those should correlate together. I'd be fine stacking those two. Then the one that is standing out currently is actually Brandon Miller for over points, rebounds, and assists at 22.5. Now, he does get a good matchup, and he is someone that did see 36 minutes in that last game. The issue with Brandon Miller is he's just not playing all too well thus far this season. He didn't really play well in the preseason. It just doesn't seem like he's all that good of a player just yet. I don't want to say he's a bad player, just probably needs time, right? And so for me, that's probably just to stay away. And this is what's been so frustrating about NBA at the start of the season. It's like the prop bets that I want to be going in on, it's like the exact opposite of what the data has been telling us. So I would say just Ball over assist and then PJ Washington over points. Those are the two best ones that we have here. I was surprised Gordon Hayward points, rebounds, and assists at 29.5. He hasn't really seen a significant boost in minutes with Terry Rozier off the court. And it does kind of make sense. Like that doesn't really make too much sense for him too. It's actually Theo Maledon. That's not right. But Theo is getting more minutes than Gordon Hayward. But Gordon Hayward, simply put, has been someone that has just been productive thus far this season, and his minutes really aren't getting limited. He's getting about 34 minutes per game. We can see he's averaging about 17.3, 5.7, and then 5. So all in all, this line that we're getting probably is correct on him, especially in a game that's supposed to be close. Let's see if we have any potential stacking opportunities in this game going against Washington. So this is going to be one of Washington's best chances to really have a good game. They're not going to be missing anyone, it seems like. Daniel Gafford started in his last game against Philly and really had himself a pretty darn good game. Now, a lot of that came to blocks, but the nice thing with him in this game is that we probably don't have to worry about him getting into foul trouble. And so he still got 30 minutes in that game, which was awesome. And so I was hoping we would be getting props for him. We're not just yet. And he would probably be the player that I'd want to go in on the most in this game because he is probably someone like fantasy score wise. If we get that prop for him, it's been at like 21 or 20 the past few games. And if it's still there at that line or even 22, I think we could probably be betting the over there. From there, it sucks that we're not really getting any other good props because, well, to be fair, Jordan Poole has been pretty bad. Kyle Kuzma had himself a pretty good game last game. And that'd be something I'd probably would be willing to bet on if this game is as high scoring and if it's going to be as good of a game. I wouldn't mind that. We look at his shot attempts. I mean, he, for the most part, has been averaging almost 20 shot attempts per game, except for that game against Boston. That game was a blowout, only played 26 minutes. But let's just look at the games that have been close. 36 minutes, 31 minutes. And in those games, he's been right around this number. Miami, obviously, a more difficult matchup. And then Memphis, a little bit of a better sample. But all in all, if we're trying to stack this game, which I think could be plausible, I would say Kyle Kuzma for points, rebounds, and assists would be the way I'd want to go. Now, we are seeing some Jordan Poole props popping, like points and rebounds. Let's take a peek at that. So Jordan Poole is someone that you would think in a game where he gets an extremely easy matchup going against LaMelo Ball, he should finally be able to take advantage of it. And I would probably say that he would be able to do that in this game. Now, the thing with a points rebounds prop is that we can see he's not really getting that many rebounds per game, like 1.8. But if we can bank on him just getting one more rebound, that would be great. And we're seeing they're projecting to get 2.5, which to me, again, seems a little bit too high. It's a strange day already. But I would agree. Like if he's going to be getting 2.5 rebounds, I would say in this matchup, he has a pretty good chance to get over 20 points. I'm actually curious about Tyus Jones in this one. Again, he's someone that probably should be getting a little bit of a bump in this game, just given the fact that he's going to be going against Charlotte and that poor defense. Like this is going to be a high scoring game. He is someone that we haven't really been able to rely on getting 30 minutes, but at the same time, they really haven't had that many close games. And so as long as he's getting around 30 minutes, I would say he does have a really good chance to get this over. And so to me, like we probably could just go Tyus Jones points, rebounds, Kyle Kuzma points, rebounds, and then also Jordan Poole, maybe points and rebounds, and then run it back with PJ Washington, point, LaMelo Ball, assists, and we have a decent slip. And so now we move on into the Boston Celtics versus the 76ers. We're going to see that this game is a 226 average over and under and a 1.5 point spread. The biggest piece of injury news we are waiting on is Derek White, whether he's going to play or not. And so we go ahead and get into the Boston props that we currently have. This slate is going to depend on whether or not Derek White plays. We see Drew Holiday for under 31 for fantasy score is one of the better props currently. Now, I would say the reason why we're getting that line that high is simply because Derek White is not getting any projections. So if he's someone that sits, to me, I would actually probably want to be favoring the over for Drew Holiday here. So that is going to be one that I'm going to stay away from for now. Again, the annoyance of the NBA props continues at the start of the season where most of the good bets that we have are better individual bets rather than, stacking slip bets for PrizePicks and Underdog. We are seeing Porzingis at over 6.5 rebounds as a decent one. To me, that one doesn't really have too much legs. We're not really getting any good props here for this game just yet. And we can see that prop line is probably correct. I mean, on average, he's basically getting there or getting close to that. So, yeah, I don't want to touch that line as well. For what it's worth, like if we do get news that White sits, like this is probably too low. And heck, even rebounds and assists is probably too low as well. But again, we don't know that news. And so I don't know if I really want to touch any of these props just yet today. So let's go ahead and get into Philly. So guys, this is going to be another prop where I'm just like frustrated. This is probably one I would have liked the over for as well. I know the matchup's not as appealing as it was against Washington, where I recommended Tobias Harris for the over fantasy score there. But let's just take a peek at all the Sixers fantasy points. Like, for the most part, they have all been going over their lines at a consistent rate. Like, Maxey has been dominating. You guys know I've been all over Maxey thus far this season. Basically, no, I think I have. I've recommended on every single slate because they just haven't adjusted for him without James Harden. I don't get what's going on there. This has been, 5-6 games now? I don't really get what's going on there. Like, he's had one dud against Toronto, which, to be honest, wasn't really a dud. Tobias Harris just really went off in that game. And he's been someone that's been extremely consistent. And given the fact that this game's supposed to stay close, and it's not even that high scoring of a game, I actually like the over here. And so I'm super frustrated that we are being told that an under bet here is one of the favorable bets. Ugly there, annoying there. And so again, Maxey for under, I don't get it. Like, what is going on in these games? And maybe we just need more sportsbooks props coming into this. I don't know. This is stuff that's obviously gonna be updating throughout the day. I would want to bet the over for Maxey for fantasy score. I'd want to bet the over for Tobias Harris. And I see this as probably a decent chance for us to stack this game. And then Embiid, we're seeing slightly favored for the over there. Not terrible, but not something I love. And so, yeah, I don't get what's going on here. Like, the team dynamic did not really change much from last year, except for James Harden's gone. That's it. Yes, I have Kelly Oubre there, who's has been filling in pretty well, but he's very much shot dependent. If he has a cold night shooting, he's not going to get there. So let's go ahead and switch up and get into the next game there. I do think Harris, Maxey just too low. Not really much to stack there though, unfortunately. So this next game that we have on the slate is actually going to be another appealing one. We got Utah versus Indy in terms of like stackability. Very high scoring game, 241 for the over and under, a 6-point spread. So a little bit of a risk for a potential blowout, but I do think we can go in on it. As of right now, we do not have any injury data whatsoever for these two teams. So we can expect them to be fully healthy. And for that matter, we should be getting some pretty darn good props for these teams. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with the Pacers. So again, for the Pacers, another one where the unders are being favored, which is strange. Topin under, Mathurin under. Let's just take a peek at those two. Now, those two I'm actually kind of like okay with because they're two players that, all in all, haven't been playing all too well thus far this season. Topin, if he can get some steals and stuff, like that's fine. He'll be able to get there. Mathurin's been kind of a disappointment thus far this season, not really getting a lot of minutes. And so, yeah, I could see us actually betting the under for those two. There's probably something there. It would appear, though, you'd be better off doing like Mathurin for under rebounds, 3.5 there. We look at his season average, only 2.9. And, he's only had one game, or I guess 2 games where he's gotten the over. So, it's a almost 54% chance to hit, and that's kind of what we want to chase. So, something there, but not great. Moving on, Haliburton under, and he's just been crushing, so that kind of makes sense. Turner for under at 32 is interesting as well, especially given this matchup, especially given this game total, but he has been very much hit or miss as well, so it does kind of make sense. Very interesting there, and that's maybe we do have a stacking opportunity here where we're kind of just betting on Utah to get blown out, not get their full allotment of minutes, and thus all their under fantasy scores hit. That might be the Pacers, we do that for the Pacers, where all their over fantasy score props are probably a little bit too high. We're actually going to see that. That's going to be the case for the Jazz as well. So if you guys have been following this channel, I have been properly hyping up John Collins, and now his fantasy score prop is getting to points where we start to have to think about it. Now we are seeing at 26.1, they are heavily favoring the under. The average sportsbook line would be. So at 26.5, that might be a little bit too high. And maybe this is just PrizePicks the day before overvaluing these props, knowing that people tend to like to bet the overs. And, maybe that's where we are getting an edge. I would say this one's a little bit too thin given this matchup with Indy. He had a tough matchup against Minnesota. I did worry in that game that he would struggle. Against Chicago, only 29 minutes, 5 personal fouls, and he has gotten into foul trouble the last 3 slates. That is something I don't think will happen in this game. So I think we can project him to get closer to 30 minutes. And so to me, that's one where we're probably staying away from. Now we are going to see Walker Kessler is favored to get over 27.5 for his fantasy score. We'll take a peek at that one. And this is something that I do think is noteworthy. Like, he does get a good matchup going against Miles Turner, but also he has been someone where we have seen his minutes be pretty sporadic thus far this season. Did get 31 in that game, but also we did see John Collins struggle And so that to me is where that prop would come true. Like I would say that those two props correlate pretty well. Walker Kessler over fantasy score, John Collins under fantasy score. If you want to flip that, that's probably what I would do. Stupid data, gosh darn it. He is very much block dependent as well, but I would say that would correlate pretty well together. And I'll pull up Walker Kessler here. So, maybe there's something there. And we did see Horton Tucker for under fantasy score. That's another one where I probably agree with it. He is a little bit too hit or miss, and it's ugly, guys. We're like, this is an annoying start to the slate thus far. Let's go ahead and move on. Jordan Clarkson, all right, over fantasy score. So we're getting some there at 28.5, but only a 52% chance for that one to hit. Again, this should be a game in which we'd want to be favoring a lot of the overs, simply given the fact that it's going to be an appealing game. We're not seeing that though. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next game. We got the Spurs versus the Knicks, a 9.5 point spread. So a lot of potential for this to be a blowout. The Spurs have been a team that have been playing heavy minutes though, so hopefully we don't have to worry about that. We do need to get news here on Devin Vassell, if he's going to play or not. He has sat the last two games, and with him sitting, that has led to Malachi Branham getting a little bit more run, 28 minutes and 25 minutes. Now, they absolutely got blown out by the Pacers. Okay, so that's part of the worry here, is that if they get blown out again, the production of like who we should be on, it's going to be tough to predict. And so we'll pull it up. We are getting a lot of green here for some over bets. Keldon Johnson for over 3.5 assists. Jeremy Sohan for over 0.5 steals. We got him for rebounds as well. Webby for over rebounds and assists. I'm curious, are we not getting any fantasy score props for this game? No, we're not just yet. Let's take a peek at Keldon Johnson and Sohan though. So Keldon Johnson at 3.5 assists is certainly interesting there. I feel like that's too thin. He is averaging 4 on the season. So just right there, we are seeing maybe be a slight edge for us, but nothing too crazy, I would say there. Let's look at Sohan for steals. He is someone that has been a little bit disappointing to me on the defensive end. And yeah, he's had 3 steals and 1 steals. We go a little bit lower, 2 and 1. Tough to say that there's something there we should be going in on. Now, Jalen Brunson, actually, let's see how many turnovers he averages. 4, 4, 1, 5. Okay, so maybe that's why. Jalen Brunson is a turnover machine. Sohan has been someone that has been starting at the point guard for him, and he is projected to start there again. And guys, so you can see, RotoWire is projecting Devin Vassell to sit, so we're probably looking at more of that lineup. And so with him off the court, we have seen Branham does get the most minutes, but then Trey Jones as well. It's Branham by a massive margin though, just FYI. And then Trey Jones, now he didn't get any run in that last game. That game was a blowout. It's a little bit concerning. The player that actually does get the biggest bump in usage is going to be Doug McDermott. If you guys follow me for DFS at all, like I don't mind this as a DFS value. Like he's way too low there. 14% usage rate with Vassell off the court. I mean, that's just crazy. The next kind of big bump for usage would be Trey Jones at 5.5, which is not that big. 4 for Sohan, and then Keldon Johnson at 2.7. Basically, everyone else stays the same. Now, Zach Collins does actually average a few more buckets per game. I don't really know why that would be. Honestly, I haven't really watched too many games. I think that just might be a case in which he was out, and Zach Collins probably shot pretty well in those 2 games where he was out. So I don't think there's anything too much there. But it does seem like all the starters are just getting a little bit more run in those situations. And so maybe there's something there, but I don't love these. I actually don't mind Sohan for over steals. What about you guys? Let me know actually in the comment section. Is that feels fishy? Obviously only 52% chance for that one to hit. It's okay. So we flip and get into the Knicks. We're going to see a lot of the under bets. Jalen Brunson for under 5.5 assists. And I wonder if that's a case where this game just could blow out. He might not get his full allotment of minutes. That's probably going to be what it is. He is only averaging 4.6 assists, so not a seemingly bad one there. Obviously a better matchup, easier matchup for them, but at the same time, he's probably just going to be one that's scoring a little bit more. And that does bring me to RJ Barrett there at 18.5. This should be an easier matchup for him. Now, we know with RJ Barrett, he's very much, his production in the NBA is very much dependent on how he's shooting the basketball. And he has shot the basketball extremely well thus far this season. If we look at this point total that we're getting, we can see he has been able to get the over pretty easily in 3 out of the 5 games he's played in thus far this season. Missed it against the Pelicans. That game was ugly, like very low scoring. And then against Cleveland, he only had 25 minutes in that game because it was a blowout, 16 points. And yes, we have some blowout risk here as well, but all in all, I don't mind that one. So if you're looking for a bet in this game, I would say probably is that one. From there, we got Randall under 9.5 rebounds. I just don't want to touch that at this point. So now we go on and move on into the next game. We're going to have the Clippers versus the Nets. Two teams to me that are just going to be super difficult to predict at this point, guys. I'm probably just staying away. We'll go through the process here. And so we do know Nick Claxton's still out. We got Cameron Johnson, currently a game time decision. He's been someone that's been sitting a bunch, so very interesting in that regard. Lonnie Walker, a game time decision as well. I believe he sat out in the last game. Looking at the Clippers, Mason Plumlee is out, so that's going to mean Zubac is going to get a better minute share most likely, and then Man currently a game time decision. So to me, the starting point in this is going to be looking at Mason Plumlee being out, because he's someone that would be averaging around 20 minutes or so. And so with him off the court, I think we can predict Zubac to get around 30 minutes. And guys, if that occurs going against the Nets without Nick Claxton, to me, that's an edge that we have there. And I'm curious if we are going to get any of his props. I probably would assume no. We are. Okay, interesting. Let's look at this one. This one might be an edge for us. So with Mason Plumlee out the court, we look at Zubac's per 36 production, 16.1 points, 11.4 rebounds, so already over that, and 0.2 steals. So yeah, probably no sense in going points, rebounds, and assists. And let's take a peek here at his just points and rebounds. It's exactly the same. So might as well just go with the points, rebounds, and assists. All right, that is a good one. And again, Plumlee looking like he's going to sit, and it kind of depends where you look. He's currently a game time decision on RotoWire here, so not a lock and load. I would say we need to get confirmation that he's going to sit, but if he does sit, Plumlee, and this is where we could probably gain an edge. This is a prop bet that probably would bump up once this news comes out. Or if it does come out, it's a little bit risk reward, like we had with Derek White 2 nights ago. But this is a very intriguing line. Now, he's not going to get 36 minutes. Let's make that clear. But even in 30 minutes, he should be able to get the over or close to that. Now, I will say the worry is the fact that he is going, or that this team now has James Harden. That is very much a concern because the whole team dynamic shifts a little bit. And so I can see if you guys just want to hands off, I don't want to touch this one. We are seeing James Harden, though, as literally the best bet EV-wise that we have gotten thus far this video at 6.5 assists. And so in his first game with them, he did play 31 minutes. They got blown out. I think he would have got to 35, 36 or so minutes. And then I kind of think it's safe to assume he would have got over 6 assists in that game. So, over 6 assists. So not a terrible line that we're getting there at 6.5. Obviously, the sports books really like that one. We also see Westbrook at over 4.5 assists. Very interesting there. He had 4 assists in that game. Very much the same reasons I just said. You kind of expect him to get another assist. Now, the biggest thing that is unfortunate here is that with James Harden off the court, we got to take a peek at that sample size. Now, it's an extremely small sample size, obviously only 31 minutes going into it, but I want to see whose production he hurt the most. Russell Westbrook, not too much, only 0.4% drop in usage. Plumlee actually got better for usage, a little bit less rebounds. I don't think we need to worry about that. I mean, we're hoping Plumlee's out. Just interesting there. So no two big shifts, but honestly, too small of a sample size to really determine anything. Let's take a peek at the Brooklyn Nets. So for Brooklyn, they are just so difficult to predict night in and night out right now because it's like, all right, which player is going to be hot shooting the basketball? Is it Spencer Dinwiddie? Is it Cam Thomas? Is it Mikal Bridges? Heck, is it DFS? Is actually Ben Simmons shooting the basketball a little bit in this game? And that'd become more true if Cam Johnson is active or if Lonnie Walker is active. And so for me, I don't think we want to touch any of the prop bets that we're getting for them. Like we see DFS for over 11.5 points. Maybe that's one. And that's simply because he's been playing center for them. You know, he's been getting heavy minutes, had 12 shot attempts, 10 shot. He's been getting over 10 shot attempts. That's not a bad one. I'm going to write that one down. I like that one. Over 10.5 there, especially Mason Plumlee being out potentially. It's just a little bit of an easier matchup going against the backup center for part of it. We see Spencer Dinwiddie for over 12.5 points. He has been super annoying. Honestly, guys, it's been so difficult to predict with him. 23 minutes in that game. Yeah, it seemed like he just was benched. And that's partially due to Cam Thomas just balling out still. Like 33 shot attempts. Are you kidding me? Like that is just crazy. And we do see DFS maybe potentially for points, rebounds, and assists. Like he is playing center for them with Nick Claxton out. So not terrible there. Yeah, all in all, I don't know if we want to be touching any of these bets that we are getting for them. I'm actually curious. Ben Simmons' rebounds did kind of skyrocket after last game, as they should have. Makes sense. All right. So yeah, let's move on to the next game. And guys, I'm trying not to dwell on games too much. It is a 14-game slate. I'm trying to get through all the games in a fast, proper manner. Let's look at the next game. Suns versus Bulls, 222.5 for the over and under. 1.5 point spread. Nothing too crazy for the Bulls. We need to get news on Alex Caruso and Patrick Williams. I believe they are expected to play though, so we're probably not too worried about that. Again though, NBA news is crazy. SGA has been ruled out for a game and then active, like stuff like that happens all the time. So a lot of these could be moot points by the time lineup lock comes around. But Devin Booker currently ruled out. Bradley Beal currently a game time decision. Let's take a peek at the lineup there. Currently in the starting lineup, and we can kind of see the starting lineup construction then. Torrey Craig currently in the starting lineup for Chicago as well. They're trying to figure out whether or not he should really start for them. And so it makes sense. We're not getting any Phoenix props just yet. So I'm just going to skip over that game just right now, guys. So we're going to move on into the next or into the other side of the game there. We got the Chicago Bulls. Oh, and interestingly enough, it kind of makes sense because we're still waiting on that news. We're not going to get any Bulls props as well, so it makes sense. We'll move on to the next game here. All right, we got Cleveland versus OKC, another game that I think could be kind of fun game to stack. 1 or almost 2 point spread there. Game over and under set about 230. So looking at it there, SGA expected back. I do want to get some news on the minutes though for someone like Jared Allen. He is someone I think could feast in this matchup if we knew that he was going to get more minutes. Now he had 21 minutes and 28 minutes. That to me is seeming like they're trying to ramp up his minutes. And so in this game, if he could get to 30 minutes, he's probably someone that we want to be looking at. He is kind of crushed on a per minute basis. And I would say this matchup going against OKC is a little bit more appealing. So I'm actually hoping that we're getting some good Cleveland props. And are we not getting any Cleveland props just yet? We're not. That's super annoying. And I do plan on doing another video tomorrow, guys. So I'll be able to touch on those props a little bit more. It's just tilting right now. OKC, are we getting any of those? No. Interesting that we're not getting those. I don't see really why not, but oh well. We'll move on to the next game that we got, Detroit versus Milwaukee, and let's just make sure we're getting props before we even touch on that. We're not, so I'll move on to the next game here. Heat versus Memphis, we're not getting any for. All right, we are getting some for the Pelicans versus Timberwolves. I know that, so 6 point spread, about a 220.5 for the over and under. Very nice. Very interesting game. So we do know that McCollum is going to be out in this game. And what I find interesting is like last game we saw that McCollum at the start of the day was one of the best like over fantasy score bets that we had. And then about an hour before lineup lock, that flipped to where his under fantasy score was one of the best that we were getting. And that was just super strange to me. That typically doesn't happen. And I didn't really see a reason as to why. But I would say part of the reason as to why he did not get there is because someone like Jordan Hawkins just went off in that game, guys. 19 shot attempts, 7 for 14 from 3-bar range, 31 points. So yeah, Brandon Ingram, who I wouldn't say was terrible or anything like that, 0 for 4 from 3, and he did have kind of a poor second half. They just didn't really need him to shoot the basketball, and he had like 4 turnovers in the second half as well going against Denver. I don't think he's going to struggle as much against Minnesota, but I do think it's kind of worth talking about the on-off court production with CJ McCollum off the court. And the issue that we had last slate for the Pelicans with the sample was that we had not really seen Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson on the court together with CJ McCollum off the court, like 5 minutes total, which is pretty darn mind-blowing to me. But we look at it now, we have and that was dating back to last year. This year we have a little bit more than that, but looking at it, Brandon Ingram still does get a 10.4 bump in usage, which CJ McCollum off the court does average about 8.9 more points per 36 with him off the court, but hasn't really seen a bump in rebounds. Assists go up by 2, so maybe that's where we're looking, points and assists. And let's just take a peek. Are we getting any good? Brandon Ingram at 5. Okay, so that's annoying right there. Brandon Ingram points 23.5, so per 36 with CJ McCollum off the court, he does average about 26.4, so maybe a slight edge that we're getting there. And I would say we are probably getting a slight edge. Like, I wouldn't say he shot the basketball well in that last game against Denver. That game ended up being a blowout. He did play 36 minutes for what it's worth though. 22 points in that game. So you give him another bucket, shoots the basketball a little bit better. Yeah, I think that's one we should be looking at, especially given the fact that we got Zion going against the 2 bigs there. Like, he could struggle in this game. Now, J-Val's going to maybe get a little bit of bump in minutes going against Cat and also Rudy Gobert. That is something that could occur. We do see Zion at 6.5 for his rebounds. Let's take a peek at that. And so if we look at his per 36 production with CJ McCollum off the court, obviously that's not going to really change his rebounds at all too much, but he does average 1 more rebound per 36 with him off the court, and to put him at about 8.6 rebounds And we saw that in the last game. He has been playing a little bit better as of recent. I don't know, guys. This matchup with Minnesota does worry me, but that does seem to be like a low number for Zion. So if you guys want to roll with that, you could. Does feel a little bit thin. We do see Jordan Hawkins for over 3.5 rebounds. Let's take a peek at that. This one feels like it's very much dependent on his minutes, and his minutes are very much dependent on how he's shooting the basketball. But he had 7 rebounds in that last game, and if he is going to get 30 minutes, like, it wouldn't be too shocking. Like, it's either Hawkins or Daniels. And let's see who's projected to start. Hawkins currently at point. And so if that occurs, yeah, I think we have some stacking opportunities here. Like Zion over rebounds. I like that. Hawkins over rebounds as well. And I like Ingram for over points. And then J-Val, let's take a peek at that one as well. I mean, I don't want to go too crazy with too many rebound props. And we can never really predict his minutes, but he has been a rebounding machine. Let's take a peek at Minnesota. And wow, all the unders are kind of being favored for Minnesota here. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I just kind of want to stay away from Minnesota then. So let's take a peek at the next games that we have. I do know we're getting some Toronto versus Mavericks props. 5.5 point spread there. 224 or so average over and under. We look at the injury report there. Okay, and this is very much still noteworthy, I would say, guys. If those 2 bigs are out for the Raptors, and let's take a peek at the other kind of injury report. Koloko is currently expected to play. That's what the green means. Now, he could get some of the minutes that Precious was getting there, which would be around 20. And I say that because Jakob Poeltl had been someone that had been getting around 28 minutes over the past few games with those 2 off the court. And he's been very much productive in those scenarios then as well. He did struggle against Philly. That is just seemingly going to be a matchup that we are staying away from. We're not worried about the matchup with Dallas, so I'm hoping that we are getting some good props here for Jakob Poeltl. I shouldn't say that because we don't know for sure if those minutes are going to be there for him. But let's see here. Fantasy score 28 under. Interesting. Let's take a peek at that. And he has been someone that has been crushing guys, and he's getting steals and blocks. I don't know. I like the over here, guys. I do. I think he's going to get us around 28 or so minutes, like he has been doing, as long as he stays out of foul trouble. But against Dallas, where they really don't have a good defensive big, I see him being able to get this over. Like, it's one of the easiest matchups on the slate. That's crazy. That's almost laughable to me. And yes, 28 fantasy score is a lot, considering his points, rebounds, and assists. But why is it that high? It's because he can get multiple blocks and multiple steals in games. 3 steals, 1 block, 3 steals, and he's not getting too many turnovers. Okay, given the matchup, I think he gets this over, and I hate that I'm writing this down as a good bet, but I think that it is. Like, I don't like that the data's telling us not to do this, and as you guys have been watching these videos, like, that has been the theme this season. NBA-wise, it's super frustrating. We do see OG for over points and assists. Underdog has bumped this to 17.5, and I'm hoping that because this is the day before video, or before the slates, that this one will still be there, because that's a big edge. And if we look at OG, he is someone that has been pretty darn solid thus far this season, and this is also kind of a good matchup for him, so I kind of like him to get over 16.5 for points and assists, and we can see that's a pretty good EV bet. And God, I'm so tilted by this. Granted, they have been extremely wrong about Scottie Barnes thus far this season. We are seeing that they have finally adjusted Scottie Barnes' fantasy score to 41. The question I have is that high enough? Scottie Barnes has been crushing. No shock to anyone that's been following the channel. We expected him to have a bigger bump in his production. I feel like that's probably a stay away at that high number, because we're catching him coming off of a huge game against the Spurs, which you would expect him to have. And so I think that's why we're getting still a high number. I wish this was still at like 38 then. Obviously, we'd probably be going in on that. For Dallas, guys, I don't have a good gauge on what we should be doing with them at all. We are going to see Grant Williams, though. This is probably my favorite bet on the slate, to be honest with you. Other than that, I don't know for sure. And let's talk about Grant Williams. Grant Williams has definitely been their kind of third key player thus far this season. He's been extremely consistent as well. Now, I do worry kind of about the matchup with Toronto, but I don't think that's going to change too much of kind of the grittiness player that he is, and he's not having too many turnovers. So in that last game against Orlando, he had 13 points, 1 block, 2 rebounds. We would like him to get closer to 4 rebounds, obviously, and I don't think we can predict him to get 15 minutes with Kyrie back. That is going to be a big difference there. At the same time, you expect him to get a couple more block or a couple more rebounds, a couple more assists, and if he can still contribute a block or a steal with no turnovers, that is a very, very low line for him. And if we look at it, guys, he has been very much consistently putting up good numbers. And so I would agree that, yeah, this is probably too low for a guy that is going to get us 33 minutes. And so, yeah, I like that one. We are seeing Kyrie for over fantasy score at 39.5. He does get a good match with Dennis Schroeder. You would think he'd be able to go out and produce. Dennis is actually kind of an interesting one as well. But yeah, for Kyrie, I don't know. That just feels a little bit too thin for me to get there. And now we are getting props. So let's move on to the next game. We are getting props for Denver versus Golden State. Not any for Portland versus the Kings. That could be a game that we were trying to stack just as an FYI. But looking at this Golden State Denver game, 3.5 point spread almost, and a 227 over and under. We look at the injury news there. Jokic is currently a game time decision. We do know that Jamal Murray is out. And so what we expected in the last game with Jamal Murray out was what happened, okay? Michael Porter Jr. gets a bump just in production, not really minutes, and he has been someone that has been playing well, but it was really Aaron Gordon was the player that was expected to really get the biggest bump in terms of people that we would be on, and that's what occurred. And so I'm hoping we're getting low lines for those two again. I'm not sure if we are. Michael Porter Jr., that might be correct at 29.5. At the same time, I could still see that being too low, and I'd say it might be correct because he is someone that minutes wise hasn't been getting the minutes. Like I was hoping he would get a little bit of bump in minutes. No, he still had 28 minutes in that game. Now that game did blow out, and that could be part of the reason as to why we saw the previous two games 31 and 34. So if this game stays close like Vegas thinks it's going to, I do think we could see him get a few more minutes in this game. And to me, if that occurs, I don't want to bet the under. I want to bet the over. Frustrating again. And looking at it, guys, like the usage rate for Michael Porter Jr. doesn't go up too much, only 2.4. Does average 4 more points per 36. Actually, a lot less rebounds, 4 less rebounds, which is weird. We did see him get 9, and that could just be a case where the sample size isn't big enough there. But he still is averaging 41 fantasy points per 36 with him off the court. And so this line at 29.5 is seemingly too low. I just don't think the books are catching up to that. Same thing with Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon per 36 production with Jamal Murray off the court, 41.6. He also doesn't see a big bump in his usage, only 1%, but does see a bump in his rebounds, 4.4, about a point more per 36, and about assist more per 36, about 6 more fantasy points per 36. And for Aaron Gordon, when I say per 36 production, I think we can project him to get 36 minutes as well. He's been an extremely consistent fantasy producer. Maybe we're worried about the matchup a little bit, but to me, those are two pretty good stacking opportunities. If you want to go with rebounds and assists that we're seeing for these guys, or points and rebounds for Michael Porter, you can do that as well. Like, I think that those are fine options there. I'm actually curious for Michael Porter. Is he someone that gets blocks and steals? Occasionally. So yeah, I would rather go with the fantasy score there. And then for Golden State, Draymond Green over 1.5 turnovers is one that's popping up, and then everyone else under fantasy score. Isn't this crazy, guys? Klay Thompson at under 23.5 for a fantasy score, and that's one where the data is telling us to bet the under. I mean, he has had a bad season. I'm not saying we need to touch on that. It's just kind of crazy there. So with that being said, let's just show you guys all the best bets that we have available on this slate, and then I'm going to show you guys the underdog good bets, and then I'm going to be getting out of here with the bet of the day. So right now we are seeing a lot of the best prop bets that we have currently are either under fantasy score bets, two of ones that I hate, and then another one if Derek White is out that I don't want to touch. So to me, let's just take a wait and see approach there. Like, we got, I don't know, what is it, 36 hours almost until lineup lock, until these games start. Let's just take the wait and see approach on those ones where the unders are being favored for guys that I don't want to touch. Drew Holiday, if White's out, is probably going to get that over pretty easily. Tobias Harris, to me, that line is still low, way too low. And granted, they might be giving us that line simply because he's due to have a bad game. I don't know. I like Maxey for over as well. Jakob Poeltl, same thing. That just seems too low. He's a point per minute producer. Yes, that's very much dependent on him getting a block and a steal. I get that, and that's probably the better bet there. If you want to do points and rebounds for him, I get that as well, but I like those two overs. And this is where I'm like, I wish we could actually bet on this on the sportsbooks, because this is a calculation that I do that pretty much says what the fantasy score prop line would be for the sportsbooks if they actually gave it out as a line. It's a little bit more work, but it is fruitful. That's why the bet of the day is at 60 to 59% rather than the 54%, which is typically the goal. Now, we are seeing Walker Kessler for over fantasy score. That is very much dependent on John Collins actually getting the under his fantasy score. That correlates to me. Grant Williams, I do like for his over fantasy score. Benedict Mathurin, I do like for his under fantasy score. Then we are getting some pretty good EV bets. Melton for under rebounds and assists. OG for over points and assists. Remember, I said that was a pretty good one. James Harden for over his assists. If he gets a few more minutes, I like that. MPJ, I like for the over there. So it's kind of unfortunate there. Let's flip it and get into underdog. So for underdog, we are seeing Jordan Poole for under 4.5 assists. That is seemingly a good one. We are seeing the James Harden assist prop is still a good one. Mathurin for under 3.5 rebounds. And really that's it, guys. We're not getting too many good EV bets. So I don't even really want to give a bet of the day out for this because it's probably going to change a lot. And it really feels like we're forcing some of these in there, but we'll go ahead and do it. And I'll give you guys kind of 2 bet slips. It'll be kind of what I see as good individual kind of sportsbooks bets. And then I'll just toss in the 3 fantasy score prop bets that I currently like the most. Oh man, guys, this is one of my favorite. They bumped this. I don't think they would. Still probably a little bit too low for Finney Smith for a guy that's been averaging 10 shot attempts per game, but this was at 10.5, I believe, when I started this video. At least that's what I wrote down. Still not terrible, but probably correct now at 11.5. I'm actually curious. Maybe his points, rebounds. Okay, this hasn't been really adjusted too much, so maybe you could just roll with that one instead. Still probably a little bit too thin now. And so starting with these bets, guys, I want to call these out because I think that these are going to be better individual bets on the sportsbooks like I kind of called out on the last NBA slate. And the reason that is because we're not getting good EV on these. Good EV is basically 54% likelihood for a prop bet to hit. That is when we statistically, mathematically have an edge on PrizePicks and Underdog. That's when it makes more sense to place a bet on PrizePicks or Underdog because their payout structure is finite, whereas obviously sportsbooks, they're adjusting based off of the line. Still, I think that these are all pretty good bets. I do kind of like the mini game stack that we have going there. That's fine. Zubac very much dependent on Plumlee sitting, but I do like the matchup going against Brooklyn there. And his points and rebounds prop is at 19.5. Do I expect him to get an assist? No, but that is a clear kind of wrong prop. That'll probably get bumped up to 20. We'll see. And then Jeremy Sohan going against Jalen Brunson a little bit, who is very much turnover prone. I'm hoping that Sohan is someone that can get a steal in this game. And so I just want to remind you guys, I highly encourage you to wait until really probably tomorrow morning to start placing these NBA bets. But if any of these that I've called out seem to be a little bit too low or too high to you, depending on the prop bet, by all means, you can attack that. That's what my goal is with all these videos. I see these as the best prop bets that we have for fantasy score. Grant Williams was statistically a good one. I like that. Tobias Harris, to me, that is simply too low. And I was kind of thinking about it. All right, Tyrese Maxey might just be low given the matchup with Drew Holiday, maybe, and so I kind of decided not to include that one. I still think it's too low. Not like too worried about it, but all in all, I'm like, okay, let's say Maxey does struggle, then yeah, Tobias Harris should be the one stepping up the most then in place of Maxey struggling. Jakob Poeltl, we saw this was actually a very good under bet. Again, I hate that's popping up, and I don't like that I'm even recommending it. I just think he's going to get us 28 minutes, and if he does, he's a point per minute player. And then tack on the fact that he gets a really good matchup against Dallas, I think he has a good chance to get the over there. Aaron Gordon, MPJ with Jamal Murray off the court, their lines are too low, simply put. We did see that, there's alternative ones we can roll with, like MPJ, you could do points, rebounds, and assists. Aaron Gordon is basically any of them, any of the combo props you could roll with. I like him for over fantasy score. To me, that's just way too low of a line. Now, sure, those Aaron Gordon and MPJ have had 3 really good games in a row. Could they just have a bad game? Could Denver have a bad game? Certainly plausible, okay? But still, we can see they're too low. So that's going to be all for this video. Again, I probably will be coming out with a video tomorrow as well covering this. I'm excited to do that. But make sure to give a like and subscribe, guys. Hit the notification bell as well. If you guys want access to the cheat sheet as it updates throughout the day, tomorrow and tonight, make sure to join the website. It is just $10 a month. Gets you access to the PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet. That's going to be all for this video. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.